Today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet this classic three-dimensional butterfly. I did this one using a super fine size 1 yarn, a lace weight yarn, and a number 2 hook. Give you kind of an idea on what that looks like. And then I did this one using size 3 yarn, sort of a lightweight baby yarn. And with this one, I used a size E hook. And then for this one, I used your standard worsted yarn, medium, size 4. And I used a size H hook for this one. And then towards the end of the video, I'm going to tell you what I liked and what I didn't like about this stitch. My name is Sig, and what a pleasure it is to have you with me at this time today. It's your interest and support that allows me to contribute new content and weekly videos. Help us all grow together by tapping the subscribe bar, notification bell, and like buttons. I look forward to your comments and always value your feedback. Now let's get started. So for today's video, you're going to need 3 colors of yarn. They do, however, need to be the same size and the same type. The consistency of the fiber is going to be important in this piece. However, if you want to go with a lace size yarn or you want to go with a bulky yarn, that's entirely up to you, so long as you keep all 3 yarns that you're working with the same size and the same type. So in this case, I happen to be using this worsted size 4 medium yarn. The colors here just happen to be the same colors and yarn choices that I'm using on a sampler afghan that I'm working on currently. And so I thought this might be a nice addition to the blocks that I'm including into this afghan. So you'll decide for yourself which yarns and colors are best for you. In this case, because I'm using this worsted yarn, this medium weight yarn, I'm going to use a size H hook. I'm also going to use a yarn needle. However, if you're using a smaller sized yarn or a different type of thread, the needle you use is going to need to be appropriate for that. And then of course scissors, right? So for this piece, we're going to work in multiples of 22 plus 13. So I'm going to begin by chaining 22 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, 21, and 22. So that's my 22 stitches, and then I want to add an additional 13. So that's going to give me a total of 35 stitches. 23, 24, 25, and 35. Now for my purposes, one length of 22 plus 13 is perfect size for the blocks that I'm making for this particular afghan. However, if you are going to make a blanket, or if you're making a sweater or anything else that requires a much longer length and a deeper width, then keep in mind you're going to want to remember that we're working in multiples of 22. And for those of you who don't really understand what that means that you are going to work in segments of 22. So for example, if your afghan that you're making, let's say you're making a baby afghan, and it's going to be 45 inches wide, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to work your gauge up to figure out, okay, so I need 22 stitches. How many times do I need to times 22 in my, when I make my chain to reach near that length? And then when I get towards the end of that length, as many 22 times that I need to stitch this, then I need to add an additional 13 stitches to the back end of that to make the pattern work and work in a way that's going to line up nicely with the fabric you are making. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to begin row 1. And in row 1, I'm going to double crochet the 4th chain from my hook. And then next I'm going to want to double crochet each chain after that. So now that I've completed row 1, I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet in each of the next stitches for the length of row 2. Next, I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1, and again I'm going to single crochet in each of the following stitches. Now that I've finished row 3, I'm going to turn my work, and this time I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And just as I'd done in row 1, I'm going to double crochet in each of the remaining stitches for the length of the row. So now that I've completed row 4, it's time for me to change colors. So I'm going to cut off this cream color I'm using, and I'm going to bring in this yellow mustard color. And this is the row where we start making the wings. So this is the row that you're going to want your, whatever color you're using to make your wings with is the color that you want to change to. And then in this row, beginning with the first row of butterflies, you want to begin by making a single crochet in each of the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to begin making the butterfly, or rather the butterfly wings. So for this next cluster of stitches, we're going to work in the back loop of the next stitch. So basically this is your first front loop right here, and then this in the back would be your back loop. I don't know how well you can see it. Front loop, back loop. And for this first cluster of stitches, we are going to work in the back loop. And I'm going to begin by making a slip stitch in that back loop. Then I'm going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Next, while still working in this back loop, I'm going to make 4 treble crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I'm going to chain 5. So now we're going to move and we're going to start to work in the front loop of that same stitch, right? So the rest of these stitches for the remainder of the wing, we are going to work in the front loop only of this stitch. So I'm going to begin by making a slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 5. And then I'm going to make 2 treble crochets. 1, 2, and I'm going to add a double crochet. And then I'm going to chain 3. Next, I'm going to slip stitch in that same front loop. And now I'm going to chain 3 again. And then I'm going to double crochet plus 2 treble crochets. Then I'm going to chain 5. And then I'm going to slip stitch in that same stitch. Whereas I'm going to chain 5 again. Next, I'm going to make 4 treble crochets, still in the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then next I'm going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I'm going to slip stitch one more time in that same stitch. And I'm going to chain 1. So now you can see at this point your 4 wings, right? So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to single crochet. So you're going to want to pull this wing over to the side so you can get your hook behind it. And you're going to want to single crochet in that very next stitch. So right here. And then you're going to want to single crochet in the next 20 stitches. So now you should have something that looks like this. So you have your wings, and then your next 21 stitches, or single crochets stitched, and then we're going to start the next 4 wings. And then of course you'll continue doing this for the length of the fabric you are working on. So again, as before, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch in the back loop of the next stitch. And then I'm going to chain 7. Next, I'm going to treble crochet 4 treble crochets in the same stitch. Then I'm going to chain 5. And I'm going to turn my work ever slightly so that I can work in the front loop of the same stitch. And I'm going to slip stitch. in that loop, in that front loop. And then I'm going to chain 5 again. I'm going to make 2 treble crochets, all in the same front loop. And then I'm going to make a double crochet, also in the same loop. This time I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to slip stitch, of course, in the same loop. Then I'm going to chain 3 again, and then I'm going to make a double crochet. Still working in the same loop, I'm going to make 2 treble crochets. And then I'm going to chain 5. I'm going to slip stitch in the same loop, and I'm going to chain 5 again. Then I'm going to make 4 treble crochets, still working in that same front loop. Then I'm going to chain 7, and I'm going to slip stitch in that same loop, same front loop of the stitch. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to turn my work. Then I will finish up my row with single crochets, or so whatever that looks like. Or if I'm working on a much longer piece, then I'm going to do my 21 single crochets before I start my next butterfly. But now that I've finished up this row, I'm going to fasten off this color because I'm going to move over to my next. So this next color is going to be used for the body and antennae of your butterfly. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tie that new color in and turn my work. And then next I'm going to single crochet each of the next stitches all the way until I hit the stitching area where we tied in our butterfly into that particular stitch. So now we're ready to do the back post treble crochet, and this is going to act as the body of our butterfly. Also keep in mind, I realize we are working on the back facing part of our fabric. So the back post treble crochet is going to be worked on what is currently our back, so it would actually be what is ultimately going to be the front of our fabric. So to do that, I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook twice, yarn over twice. And I'm just going to fold my wings up a little bit. And I'm going to insert my hook into the double crochet for which my wings are connected to. And now I basically have the body of my butterfly, and we'll straighten all that out here in just a minute. Next, I'm going to chain 5. And then in the third chain from the hook, I'm going to slip stitch once. And then I'm going to slip stitch in the next 2 chains. Then I'm going to chain 5 again. And then the same thing, I'm going to slip stitch in the third chain from the hook, and then I'm going to slip stitch in the next 2 chains. So now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to do another back post treble crochet, and I'm going to work it in that same stitch as I had the one just before it. And then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to take this and I'm going to slip stitch right in here into the back of the stitch itself, just to kind of hold it in place. And then I'm going to single crochet in the very next single crochet. And I'm going to continue that for a total of 21 stitches, or until I get to the end of my work, or until I get to my next butterfly. But 21 stitches should be the length between butterflies. So now you can see this is what the first butterfly looks like. And then we've counted our 21 single crochets, and we're getting ready to start the second body of the butterfly. So again, I'm going to do the back post treble. It's easier if you just fold the wings up to locate your double crochet that you're working with. Then you're going to chain 5. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to slip stitch in that third chain from the hook. Then you're going to chain 5 again. And again, slip stitch third chain from the hook. Plus 2 more times. I don't know if I said that in the last section part. But yeah, so for each antennae, just in case I missed it, you're going to chain 5, slip stitch in the third chain from the hook, and then slip stitch in the next 2 chain stitches. Then you're going to chain 5 again, slip stitch in the third chain from the hook, and then continue to slip stitch in the next 2 chains. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to make another back post treble crochet in the same double crochet that we worked in with our last back post double crochet. Sorry, our back post treble crochet. And then when we have that, we're going to come here to the back of the head of the butterfly and basically slip stitch that right on in. And then we're going to make our next single crochet. So if you have a longer piece of fabric, you're going to single crochet 21 times. In my case, since I'm finished, I'm just going to finish up my row. And then when you've finished up your row, you're going to go ahead and you're going to fasten off that color. And you're going to pick up with your main color once again. And I've tied in my background color. my base color. And then I'm going to chain 3. And then the next stitch, I'm going to double crochet. And then I'm going to double crochet in each stitch until I hit the stitch where we did those two back post treble crochets. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip over that. And in the very next crochet stitch, I'm going to place 2 double crochets in that same stitch. Then I'm going to double crochet 20 more stitches. Or, in other words, until I hit that next stitch where we had done 2 of the back post treble crochets in the previous row. So again, just like before, now that I've come up to this part where we made the 2 back post treble crochets, I'm going to skip that. And then I'm going to place 2 double crochets in the next single crochet stitch in this row. And then I'm going to continue on as before with the double crochet. So in my case, I'm going to end it here in the next stitch or 2. Depending on the length of your fabric, you may continue all the way up until that next stitch where you did the 2 back post treble crochets for your butterfly's body. So, but once I finish the row, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the work. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to single crochet in each of the stitches for the length of row 8. For row 9, I'm going to basically repeat row 8. I'm simply going to chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet in the following stitches for the length of this row. So at the completion of row 9, I'm going to turn my work, and this time I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to double crochet in each of the following stitches across the length of the row. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get my chain done right now because I know that's what I'm going to need. Row 11, we're making our next butterfly, and we know this, but we want to stagger. So because we're going to stagger our butterflies in row 11, this time we're actually going to single crochet 15 stitches. So now, with exception to starting our row 11 so that we can stagger our butterflies in our pattern, everything else is going to be the same. So the way we make our butterfly is going to be the same. Basically, the way we conduct all the rest of the stitches are basically going to be as we have done before. Once we make our wings, if your fabric is wider than my sample piece is here, then you're going to crochet or single crochet 21 stitches, just like you did before. The only difference is before you started these first butterflies in your first row, you chained in 5. And now in row 11, when you start your next row of butterflies, because you're staggering them, you chain in 15, and everything else is as before. So once you get to doing rows 12 and 13, you're basically simply going to repeat rows 6 through 7. And then after you've done that, if your piece is deeper or longer than that, then you're going to continue to repeat rows 2 to 13 until you've reached the desired size of your fabric. So this is what my block looks like, what my finished block looks like that I'm using for the sampler afghan that I had mentioned before. And this is an interesting stitch. It reminds me a lot of taking trim, right? But you're basically working what the trim you would normally make into the actual fabric of your piece, which kind of appeals to me and I kind of like. But what I didn't like about this particular motif, this particular design, is the way it curls, right? It's a little crazy. I mean, nobody, not even me, and I get a little weird about these things, is going to spend time blocking these butterflies every time you need to wash the blanket or the sweater or whatever. So initially it looks really good, it looks really fun, but after just a little bit of wear or moving around or just settling, I find that the wings just really bunch up and they just kind of curl in on themselves. And I'm not a fan of that personally. I want things that are going to be a little easier to care for, but still look good. Now, if I'm using, let's say, some cotton lace thread, that might be okay because I'm probably going to starch it. It's probably going to be like a doily or some sort of trim off of something or some sort of embellishment to a piece of fabric that's not going to see a lot of use. It's going to be mostly decorative. And then in that case, I'm not going to care because it's not really going to be a problem, right? The edges aren't going to curl up once I've starched it properly and blocked it properly. But if I'm wearing it or I'm using it in an afghan, this butterfly is just going to crumple in on itself and it's not going to be very legible. And it's going to be kind of disappointing because nobody wants to see their work, not look very appealing or pleasing after they've spent so much time making it, right? So you can see how that's already curling in on itself, right? So that not to belabor the point, that really bugs me. So what did I do to fix it? Because I'm just not going to sit here and complain about it. I'm going to tell you what I did to fix it. I actually took it and I sewed. I took just the matching yarn and I just sewed the wings down, right? I just sewed them down and wove in my ends. So you don't even hardly see any of that nonsense on the back. But now this afghan can be used. If I were making this into a motif for a sweater, I could certainly wear it and not worry about it curling in on itself. It's going to stay exactly looking like the butterfly it's supposed to be. Now is the time for me to say goodbye, so until I see all you wonderful and creative fiber artists again, stay crafty, stay amazing. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now.